Did you know? School Sport Victoria offers 650,000 sporting opportunities in 31 different sports at 10,700 events across the state every single year. That's a lot of kids playing sport. And for over 25 years, the Victorian School Sports Awards have recognised more than 1,500 students, teachers and volunteers for excellence and outstanding contribution to school sport. Now that's a champion effort.
Hello and welcome to the Ask SSV show, and I'm joined by the very lovely Brooke Stratton. How are you, Brooke?
I'm good, Raf. How are you?
I'm great, thank you. Been looking forward to this, as many have been looking forward to this. We're across 3 channels at the moment, and lots of people want to tune in to not only see you, but probably ask you a bunch of questions as well. But as you know, we've had 48 questions sent in. I don't know how we're going to get to 48, but they want to hear lots about you. But before we do, we're going to talk about you a bit. Allow me just a few minutes to brag about Brooke, because I like to call you champ, because you are a champion. 2015 World Championships, March 12, 2016 Perth Track Classic 705, which became the Australian record. Brilliant. 2016 Olympics, 2018 Com Games silver medal, and now Tokyo 2020, we call it Tokyo 2021, but it's Tokyo 2020 Olympics. 7th position in both Rio and at the Tokyo Olympics. If there was one that was like a sweetest victory, which one would be the sweetest for you?
Start with the hardest question. To be honest, they're all sweet in a different way. I mean, my first World Championships in 2015, being my first senior international team, that was really special and a huge achievement for me. Breaking the Australian record in Perth was definitely up there with one of the biggest highlights, because it was quite unexpected, and I didn't, realize that I was going to achieve something so crazy like that so early on in my career. And then obviously Rio 2016, first Olympic Games, a childhood dream becoming reality. Like, that was honestly just so hard to believe at the time. And Com Games silver was an incredibly special moment, being a home games and having my friends and family in the crowd to celebrate that silver medal with. And then Tokyo after the postponement, and what the year was last year, it was very challenging. So to have been able to overcome that whole year, the struggles, the challenging times from that, it made this year very special as well. But if I have to choose one, I'm probably going to have to say Rio 2016, my first Olympic Games, placing 7th in the final.
Brilliant stuff. Now, I mean, I guess you're right that each one has its own kind of story attached to it. And I happened to be there in Perth when you jumped 705, and I happened to be at the Com Games when you jumped and you got the silver medal. The crowd is amazing. We're going to get to this just a little bit later on, but just want to put it in context. You're in hotel quarantine. We don't need to mention where you are, but you're in hotel quarantine, and you're in your Australian uniform, so internet might be a bit sticky with the hotel quarantine, but you're wearing the green and gold. It must be nice to just put it on without any pressure. You don't have to perform, don't have to train. It's all just, I just wear it, and you wear it proudly, I guess, do you?
Yeah, definitely. Last time I was wearing it, or this tracksuit in particular, I was out competing, and I felt a lot of stress on me and a lot of different emotions wearing this uniform. So it's nice just to be able to kick back in my hotel room and put it on, and be able to speak to everyone on this live today.
Brilliant. Now, we've got lots of questions that have come in, like I talked about. We've got Indigo from Ringwood North Primary School, who's asked a question: how did you first get involved in long jump? So what was it that sparked the interest for you in long jump, so to speak?
Yeah, so my older brother, Jamie, actually was encouraged by my parents to give Little Athletics a go down at the Nunawading Little Athletics Centre. And I would go along every week, not able to compete yet because I was still too young to start. But I remember getting involved in what was called an underage race, which was a 50-metre sprint for anyone that wasn't old enough to start Little Athletics. And I guess that was the moment that made me realize that I had a really big passion for running and athletics, and it made me super eager to get involved when I was old enough. So, so when I was old enough, I joined the Nunawading Little Athletics Club in the under 6 age group, and it's all history now looking back on it. But I had so much fun through my Little Athletics days, and I'm so glad that my parents got my older brother involved.
Which is, I mean, you've got a family that's heavily involved in sport. I guess, where did school sport play its part for you? Where did school sport, what role did school sport play in Brooke becoming who she is today?
Yeah, so obviously, as I said, I started athletics years of age, but I made my first school sport Victorian team when I was in the 10 years age group. So that allowed me the opportunity to be able to represent my state at a national championships. And I guess the stepping stone prior to that was, being able to represent my school and then making it to both the regional and then the state championships. And it was all just like little stepping stones along the way that allowed me to get to that national level. And if it wasn't for School Sport Victoria, then that opportunity wouldn't have been there when it was there. So I think the biggest thing that I learned through School Sport Victoria and the opportunities that arose there was that the most important thing about athletics was to have fun. And I met my best friend through Little Athletics and through school sport as well. She's still my best friend to this day, and so many amazing people and friendships, friendships were made along the way. So it's definitely shaped me into the person that I am today, because I've been able to surround myself with so many incredible people and people that have really positively influenced myself as an athlete and person.
Which is, I mean, brilliant stuff. And it's nice, and we're really proud of the fact that school sport has played such a significant role from when you were younger. We've got some questions that are rolling in, but we've got some people that we're joining live, and I'm going to bring Olivia on now, who's going to ask a question to you. Olivia comes to us from Ringwood North Primary School. How are you, Olivia?
I'm good, thank you. How are you?
Good, thank you. What's your question for Brooke?
My question is, what age did you start training for long jump, and what inspired you to keep going?
Great question, Olivia. So I didn't start training until I was maybe 10 or 11 years of age. It was really all about just having fun when I first started Little Athletics. But the thing that really inspired me and motivated me to keep going was the goals that I set from such a young age. I set the goal of getting to the Olympics when I was in grade 1. And for every year from that age of, I think I was 7 years of age at the time, I always had that in the back of my mind. And being able to write down your goals and tell people your goals is really important. And I think that's allowed me to have a real solid focus on where I wanted to go with my sport.
Nice. Thank you.
Thanks.
That's not a bad answer, is it? Not a bad answer. Tell us, Olivia, before you go, have you got a favourite sport that you play?
Yes, soccer.
Soccer. Good work. That's excellent. Well, you always need to learn how to jump high and run fast. So obviously Brooke's tips will help you out.
Yeah, definitely.
Thanks, Olivia.
Thanks heaps for joining us.
Bye.
Bye.
Nice to have Olivia join us there. And we've got a couple of other questions that have come in. Tiana, also from Ringwood North Primary School. I don't know what it is at Ringwood Norton. We've got about 19 schools represented today in the questions. So 19 different schools that have submitted all these questions. But Tiana's asked this question. Have you ever been interested in or played any other sports apart from long jump? That's a great question, actually.
Yep. So I played basketball as well as doing athletics up until I was about 15 or 16 years old. I loved everything about the team sort of side of things with basketball, and I think it was great being able to compare the two sports in a way. And athletics is a very individual sport. A lot of your training is done solo. You're accountable for everything you do that reflects on your performances. But with basketball, it was nice to have that, relationship with your teammates as well. And so I was involved in basketball up until I had to make the decision to really focus in on one sport or the other. And I chose athletics because that's where my true passion laid.
Well, I think you made the right decision, to be honest, because I'm sure you're a great basketballer, but you're a phenomenal track and field athlete and long jumper.
Thank you.
Kiara from Tucker Road Bentley Primary School has asked this. At what age were you when you realised you wanted to be an Olympian? Now, last time we did a Q&A, you told this little story about, seeing the long jump happen in front of you, but just tell us a little bit about that. What age were you when you thought, one day I'm going to wear the green and gold?
Yeah, so I was actually only 7 years old. I was sitting in front of the TV at home in the lounge room with my family, and we were watching the Sydney 2000 Olympic Games. And we watched Kathy Freeman win the gold medal for Australia in the 400 metres. And that was the moment that I said to myself, I want to be in her position one day. I want to go to the Olympics. I want to put the green and gold on, and I want to represent my country. I didn't know for what event it was going to be for, but I knew that that's where I wanted to go with my sport. And from there, I was telling everyone that I wanted to be an Olympian. I wanted to be an athlete. I wanted to be like Kathy Freeman all through my primary school days. So that was really the moment that I guess I set that goal, and it was a long time ago now.
Well, I mean, it must have been quite exciting for your family, but as a 7-year-old, it's probably one of those things that 7-year-olds say. But you managed to stay focused from 7 right up to however old you are now, to stay focused in and to keep chasing that dream. That must have been not an easy thing to do from a young age, right?
Yeah, it definitely wasn't. There's been some real challenging times that I've faced and have had to overcome along the way. Not so much in my junior years, more so, I guess, through that transition from junior to senior athlete. I had such a clear focus on where I wanted to go with my sport, and even through year 12, those teenage years where all my friends wanted me to go out partying and drinking alcohol, I was always able just to really stay focused on my athletics and did all the right things along the way as well. So I think it's really important to try and cut out those distractions, but also have a really good balance in your life as well.
Brilliant stuff. Now, you can't see these comments that are coming in, Brooke. I'm just going to pause for a second and tell you Kevin Oakey, who's a principal, has said, pleasure. You might remember Kevin Oakey. I don't know if you remember.
Yeah,
he was a team manager. He said, pleasure having you on the SSV team, Brooke. And also we've had Vixen Jackley, who also came through Team Vic Track and Field, said you're such a great legend. We've got some other questions coming in. Eden's asked this question, which kind of goes on with what you just talked about. Before we get our next guest on, we've got Brenda, who's just sitting backstage ready to come on. But this question's come from Eden, Tucker Road, again from Tucker Road Primary School. Hi, Brooke. I'm 8 and I really love sport, and I want to compete at the Brisbane Olympics. How much training do I need to do every week to make sure that I make that happen? I'm guessing when the Olympics were announced a couple of weeks ago, Brooke, while the Olympics were on, when the Brisbane Olympics were mentioned, I'm guessing a whole bunch of little 8-year-old, 10-year-old kids went, I want to be there. So what's involved in a nutshell?
Yeah, it's awesome, and it's the perfect way to inspire the next generation to go after their goals, because what better way to represent your country than to be at a home Australian Games. Like, it's such an amazing opportunity. It's a shame I'll be a bit too old to compete there, but I guess if you're only 8, Eden, you're still very young, but it's amazing that you've already set some pretty big goals, and it sounds like you've got you've got the right mindset, and you're willing to do everything you can to get yourself to those games in 2032. I'd probably say, when I was 8 years of age, it was all really about enjoyment, having fun with my friends, just enjoying that social side of sport and not really taking it too seriously. But I'd say when I started training around 10 or 11 years old, I probably did maybe 3 to 4 sessions a week. I just, went down to the local athletics track with my dad and my siblings, and we really just had fun. But as I got older and as I progressed and really started taking things a little bit more seriously, that's when I started to follow a more structured training program and plan. So, I just encourage you to keep enjoying what you're doing, and I think that's probably the biggest piece of advice that I can give, because the more you're enjoying it now, the more chance that you're going to be doing the sport for the long haul. So I wish you all the best, and I have no doubt that you'll be in Brisbane 2032.
And you might have someone in your competition there, Brooke. We'll see. We're still on target, actually, so we're doing well with time. I don't know how we're doing it, but we are. You're doing really well with the answers. So I'm going to bring on Verinda. Verinda comes to us from Casey Grammar School. Let me just bring on Verinda. Hello, Verinda. How are you?
I'm great, thank you.
Hi, Verinda.
That's good.
Hi. This year I'm going to be in under 10 at Cranbourne Little Athletics, and your videos have really inspired me to keep on moving forward in long jump. So I have got 2 questions. My first question is, what is the best way to get great height in long jump? Because that's what I've been working on. And my second question is, what goes in your mind just before you're about to jump?
Amazing questions. So I guess to improve your height in long jump, it's all really about knee drive and trying to get your knee as high as possible, to get that height in the air, and just holding that knee up for as long as possible is definitely the aim in long jump. And I think something else that's super important for long jump is being able to run down the runway as fast as you can and not slow up as you're approaching the board. So the more speed that you can take into your takeoff, the more momentum you have behind you, and that will hopefully help with your knee drive as well. But to help improve knee drive, in training in the past, I'm not sure if you're maybe too young to start incorporating this into your training, but I've jumped off a platform or a springboard, which gives you a little bit more time in the air. You get more the takeoff board. So you're able to really focus on spend more time in the air and really just holding that knee up for as long as you can. So I hope that helps. It sounds like you're making some pretty good progress though.
Yeah, thank you.
And the second part of the question was what goes through my mind when I'm on the runway. Was that correct?
Just before you're about to jump.
Yeah. So I've worked really closely with a sports psychologist just to come up with a few very simple and basic cues that I think about just to really get the process right as I'm about to take off and run down the runway. Just trying to really declutter my mind and keep things really simple, just really focus on those key aspects of my run up and take off and jump, which is really important. So I think the less I'm thinking about, the better when I'm standing on the runway.
Yeah, thank you.
Amazing questions. Thank you.
Thank you.
Now, Verinda, you like sport, obviously. What sports do you like?
I love long jump and sprinting.
Great stuff. Now, she didn't mention this part, Brooke. She sent this in to us, and I'm going to read it for her. I'm going to make her a little embarrassed. She might blush a little. She said, Brooke Stratton has been my idol for the past 2 years since my passion for long jump has grown stronger and stronger. So pretty special. She's put this young girl has put 60 centimetre PBs in 6 months, which is pretty amazing. PBs are always amazing, but 60 centimetres is mind-blowing. So keep up the good work, Brenda.
Thank you.
Amazing, Brenda.
Thank you.
Keep going. Awesome
Thank
job.
you so much.
And keep following Brooke. She's an excellent role model, both on the track and off the
Definitely.
Oh, thank you.
track. See you soon.
Thank you.
I'm the one blushing now.
Well, it's always nice to have credit where credit's due. And look, we are rolling through this. Abby from Yarrawonga College P12 has said how young were you when you were inspired to become Olympian? You've talked about that. So just want to roll through some of these before I miss them. But Declan St Mary's Alexander said, when you were 8 or 9, did you have a dream of being in the Olympics? Which you talked about, watching the screens and, being part of that. And when did you start long jump? You talked about that too. I think it was when you were a young age and you started going down to the local track with your brother and local athletics club, which was Knox, was it? Which one was it?
Started with Nunawading.
Nunawading, that's right.
Yeah. I moved to Knox when I was in under 10. So I was only at Nunawading for a brief period of time.
Yeah. Now, Anastasia, before we get on to it, we've got some other guests coming on in a second, but Anastasia asked an interesting question, and it's what motivated you to compete in the Olympics? Now, the obvious answer is, everyone wants to represent Australia, but I want to take it from the angle of last year was, it was ridiculously hard. Let's call a spade a spade. It was hard for any elite athlete to train with lockdown, with rules and all that. How did Brooke Stratton stay motivated and hungry to get to whenever the Olympics were going to be? Because let's face it, this time last year, you didn't know if they were going to be on again and when they were going to be on. So how did you stay hungry for that?
Yeah, I think after the postponement, everything was still up in the air because we didn't know whether the games were going to get completely cancelled or not. But for me, I just really had to stay focused and make sure I did everything in my power to get to the Olympic Games this year, whether they went ahead or not, in the best shape possible. So for me, it's all about goal setting. I think that's really the biggest way to help me stay motivated, setting, micro goals, short-term goals, long-term goals, and really having something written down in front of me that keeps me accountable and really keeps me driven and hungry as well. And last year, I spent many months training just down at the local football oval because I didn't have a track in my 5K radius. I did my gym sessions in the garage with minimal equipment. I wasn't able to train with my coach, my training squad. So it was really tough, but knowing in the back of my mind that there was an Olympic Games that were hopefully going to go ahead this year, that was the biggest motivating factor for me. And I honestly just really tried to focus in on the little things that normally would get neglected in my training, that sometimes I would just fob off a little bit because I didn't have the time or there were all these other distractions going on in my life when I got really busy. So, just really made the most of the extra time that we had. And I think it did really pay off this year, even though I've been struggling with a few injuries. But, goal setting is key for me.
Which is great. Now, we've had these other questions come in which fit perfectly with what you're talking about. In relation to how hard it was to get to these Olympics from on again, off again, on again, off again, lockdown, no lockdown, what was it? Sophie asked from Canberra College, she asked, what was your experience like at the Olympics? Now, from the perspective of how was it finally getting there? You walked out walked out onto the runway, you're ready to do your qualifying long jump. Was there a moment where you're like, damn, I got here, this is awesome?
Yeah, 100%. It was honestly just such a relief to walk out into the stadium and just to be there because it had been such such a tough road to get there. You know, because of COVID, because of the lockdowns, I'd had some injuries that were really preventing me from training how I would have liked. So to have finally been there, it honestly, yeah, as I said, it was just a massive relief. I felt like a weight was off my shoulders, and that extra year of waiting made it really worthwhile. Yeah.
Now, just coming back to that, Caitlin's asked a really pertinent question. I'm sure this is a question that lots of people ask as well. Caitlin from Cranbourne South Primary School. Were you disappointed that there were no crowds? So you walk out, you're finally there, you feel elated, but then there's no crowds. Was that a disappointment for you or for other athletes?
To be honest, like, I didn't even really think of it at the time. When I was in the stadium, it just kind of felt somewhat normal. It felt like we were at a competition here in Australia with a little crowd, but not a massive, you know, filled out stadium. So I don't know if it affected me or the Australian athletes as much as it may have affected some of the other international athletes. But I guess, you know, athletics competitions here in Australia, we don't get massive crowds. So we're not used to competing in front of stadiums that are filled with spectators. It would have obviously been fantastic having a bit more of an atmosphere in the stadium, but there was still a decent amount of people that were there supporting and cheering. Athletes were able to go to the athletics that had already finished competing. There was staff there, coaches. So there was a little bit of atmosphere, and there was enough for me to get a clap going on the odd occasion. So that was nice.
Yeah, it would have been. Now, Arizona's asked this question, which follows on as well from Cranbourne South Primary as well. How nervous were you when you walked out on the stadium before your event? So we've talked about walking out, we've talked about no crowds, but were you nervous? And did having no crowds help that nervousness or not?
I was nervous. It had been almost 2 years since I'd competed at an international competition. So I think my nerves were heightened because of that reason in particular. But also the fact that I'd been quite injured leading into the Olympics, and I hadn't quite done the training and had the preparation that I would have liked, made me a little bit more nervous as well. So there was definitely added stress there because of those reasons. And I think maybe not having so many people in the crowd made me feel a little bit more comfortable being out there. But I think if I had the ideal preparation, it would have been a completely different story in terms of nerves. But there's always some nerves. You've just got to be able to control them as best as possible.
Well, definitely. And preparation's key. I mean, I'm no elite athlete, but I know preparation is key to anything. Renee from Seymour College from Seymour Primary School asks this question. What do you do when you don't feel like training, but you have to do so to stay strong? Is there ever a time when Brooke goes, you know what, I just don't feel like training today? What do you do in that moment?
There has been plenty of days where I haven't training, and that's,
I don't believe you.
That's just me being completely honest. I have 2 autoimmune diseases, so there's days where I honestly just really struggle to get out of bed. I've been through massive periods where my health just hasn't been that fantastic purely because of that reason. And, you know, when you're injured and leading into the Olympics, all I could do for several weeks was swim, and I really don't like swimming. I'm not good at it at all. And I had to swim in an outdoor pool in the middle of winter because indoor pools weren't open because of the COVID lockdown. It was really tough. But as I said earlier, having my goals written down and having them in the back of my mind is the biggest motivator for me. So even when I don't feel like training, or when I feel unwell, or I just wake up and feel super sore, that's what I think about, and that's what drives me to get training done every day.
Which, I mean, that would make a big difference, I guess, in the sense that, you know, you just have to get it done, and you're looking at the long term, I guess. Ablak, who was going to join us live, he's asked this question. How do you practice your long jump before your competition? So let's think about tapering or what you have to do in the lead up to an event, what sort of things does your training look like?
So leading into a major championships or an event that I really want to feel super fresh for, my training tapers off quite significantly. So prior to my event in Tokyo, as an example, the day before I would just do a warm-up. So that would just involve a little jog, some running drills, a few run-throughs, and that would be it. The day prior to that, I would just I'd have the complete day off, so I wouldn't do anything, just a complete rest day. And the day out from that, so 3 days out from my competition, I just did a normal warm-up and did 3 flat-out 50-meter sprints in my spikes. And the whole sort of week or two leading out for a competition, my weights will really lighten up. My overall training volume will decrease as well. So it's all really about just, getting to the competition and feeling as fresh as possible. And also we really try and focus on the technical elements of my jumping, cut out all the volume and just get that real specific training done. So a lot of run-up work, just try to get that run-up as consistent and, as good as possible.
I mean, that you've given some great tips there, but I guess you're trying to encapsulate, in a sentence what you've done for 2 decades of long jumping and honed your craft. So I think it's pretty good. Mackie Horn, his mother's Brooke. She's they're a fantastic family. Mackie from Listerfield Primary School's asked a whole bunch of questions. She got really excited and asked like 7, but I'll go through a few of these. She says this: my family and I were cheering for you in the lounge room, and we were so proud that you represented the country. I know the answer to this, but I'm going to ask anyway. As a 2-time Olympian, dual Olympian, will you continue to train as hard as I see you training during the week? She must bump into you now and then. So will Brooke continue to train just as hard?
Hey, Mackie. Thanks for the question. So Mackie actually trains down at the Nunawading Athletics Club. So, I see her quite often. So it's great that she's sent some questions through. But I'll honestly be training even harder, but smarter type of training. I think, for me, I had a really interrupted lead into Tokyo, so my training, it wasn't how I wanted it to be. So I think if I can get my body right and, be able to get key sessions done and just get that consistency in my training, I'm pretty excited for next season. So I'll be training as hard as I can leading into Paris in 2024, and there's obviously some real key events between now and then that I'm really looking forward to as well.
Brilliant stuff. Now, just in relation to training and analysing, Travis Gray asked this again. You can't see the comments, but he said this: with regards to technique, assuming you use video analysis. Now, your dad's the coach, so what's the best tip for young athletes to turn observations on video into actual movement? Do you guys use video analysis and all that sort of thing?
Yeah, we do. Yeah, so that's something that's really important that we incorporate within my training. We also get a biomechanist out to my sessions every so often just to get film and also get some data of my velocities on the runway as well, occasionally like my step lengths and that sort of thing. So it's super important to be able to, watch over footage and be able to see yourself what you need to improve on and how you can improve on that as well. Because if you've got that understanding of what you can do better or what you can work on, it's going to make that transition for you a lot easier. It's something that we try and incorporate into my training as much as possible.
Brilliant. So that was a question from Travis Gray. Now we're going to move to Ava. Ava's joined us live on the show. If I can move my mouse into the right screen. Ava, hopefully will see us soon. She hasn't got a camera on, but we'll bring her on. Ava comes to us from Hazelwood, Yarraville West Primary School. How are you, Ava?
Good, thank you.
Hi, Ava.
Hi, Brooke. My question is, after working and training so hard, how does it feel to win a medal?
Yeah, that's a good question.
Fantastic question. It's an incredible feeling. As I said earlier, I was able to win a silver medal at the Commonwealth Games in 2018. And it's definitely up there with one of the highlights of my career, because not only was it amazing to see all the hard work that I'd put into my training and recovery pay off, but I was also able to share that amazing experience with so many of my close family and friends. And being a home games as well, there were so many Aussie supporters in the crowd watching, and so many people supporting from home. So it's definitely a highlight when you do win a medal, especially at a major championships. But I think the most important thing is just making sure that you're having fun out there and enjoying it as much as possible. So a medal's nice, but I think even if you're not winning medals, it's really just about seeing progress within yourself. And
Now, Ava, before you go, tell us, do you have a favourite sport?
Well, I have two. I like surfing and I like taekwondo.
Good job. Well, surfing's in the Olympics, so are you hoping to make the Olympics maybe for surfing?
I'm not that good.
If you had a choice, not a choice, but if you wanted to win a medal, if you were going to win a medal for Australia, where would you love that medal to be? In what sport?
Maybe taekwondo, because I'm better at taekwondo.
Very good. Thanks heaps for joining us today, Ava. It's been a pleasure having you on, and keep tuning in.
thanks, Ava.
Bye.
All the best. Bye.
Always good to have some athletes come on and just say some really nice things too. So we've got some more guests that are here as well, Brooke. So we're going to keep moving on. Poppy's going to join us in just a second, but before Poppy comes on, Alice from Rosanna Golf Links Primary School said this: have you ever injured yourself and had to stop training and competing, and how did you feel? That's actually we could probably spend an hour just talking about that one question, but
Yeah, I've had quite a lot of injuries, unfortunately. My first major injury was back in 2014. I had a stress fracture in the L4 vertebrae in my back, so just in my lower back, which was really unfortunate because I found out a week before I was supposed to leave for the Commonwealth Games. So that was shattering. And between now and then, I've had a stress reaction in my cuboid, which is a bone just on the outside of your foot. I've had a stress fracture in the sesamoid bone, which is in your big toe. I've had numerous sort of ligament and tendon issues as well. And most recently, I've had, I don't really know exactly what it is. I think we need to do some further investigating, but I've had quite an injured knee for the last 8 months. And I've had 5 cortisone injections since January just to be able to get through training so I could get to Tokyo. But it seems to be the joint capsule at the back of my knee, and also I think ITB friction syndrome, so also pain at the side of my knee. But I think there's some sort of underlying issue that needs to be addressed. But yeah, there's been numerous injuries, and I think the biggest lesson that I've learned along the way is to be resilient, to be able to stay positive through these really challenging and tough times. And I've been so lucky to have fantastic support around me as well. I've got such a supportive family. My dad's my coach as well. My partner Nathan has been fantastic. And yeah, so many amazing friends, and also the support from both Athletics Australia and the Victorian Institute of Sport has really helped get me through these tough and challenging times. So I wouldn't have been able to come out on the other side of all these injuries without their advice and guidance. So yeah.
Great job. That's I mean, I'm just tired just hearing you talk about the injuries. You've done amazing to get where you are. We're going to bring on Poppy from Tucker Road Primary School. Hopefully Poppy will turn on her camera in just a second, but Poppy's got a question for you. I think Poppy might be having, no, here she is. Hey Poppy, how are you?
Hi, good, how are you?
Good, thank you. What's your question for Brooke?
How long did you have to train to be this good?
It's taken a lot of years of hard work, that's for sure. As I said earlier, I started training about 10 or 11 years of age from memory. I'm now 28 years old. So it's definitely been, a long road to get to where I am today, and a lot of hard work's been put in over the years, and just getting that consistency with my training has allowed me to achieve what I have today. But hard work's definitely the key to success. And I think it's definitely been what it has taken for me to get to this level. Great question.
Now I'm going to tack on a question for while you're here, Poppy. I'm going to add to that. Brooke, what's going to help Poppy stay motivated, and what's helped you stay motivated we're talking just over 20 years. How have you kept hungry and at the form that you're at? Because what Poppy may not know is, Poppy, she's made nationals at almost every opportunity that nationals has been. Yes, it's amazing. So how, Brooke, what's been the underlying thing for you to stay and keep going?
As I said earlier, just setting goals. I think that's been the real key, and always having something to work towards and keep me really accountable and driven. There's been so many setbacks that I've had to overcome as well that have made the pathway to success very challenging. But I think I'm really internally motivated, and I think that's probably what sets me apart to a lot of other athletes that I do know. I've just got this real internal motivation to want to be as good as I possibly can be, and just to see how far this sport can take me. And I think because I love it so much, I love everything about it, and I think that's what's kept me in the sport for the long haul. And meeting so many amazing people along the way has made it so much fun. So that's probably been the key for me.
Yeah.
Poppy, do you like sport?
Yeah, I play basketball.
Oh,
nice. Now, who's better at basketball, you or your dad?
When COVID, when we weren't in lockdown, my dad and some of my friends' dads, we played kids versus dads, and the kids won. Awesome. So I think I'm better than him.
Good job. And you know what? I reckon your dad didn't let you win. I reckon you actually beat him fair and square. What do you think?
Yeah, probably.
So good to have you join us today, and we hope you keep tuning in.
Thanks, Poppy.
Bye.
Bye.
Another great question. We're just about to go to Jessie in a second, but we've got a question that's come in, and I love this question. This is coming from Ding. I think I've said that right. Ding, St. James the Apostle Primary School. Out of 100 times, how many times has sand gone in your eyes? That's an important question, Brooke.
Well, surprisingly enough, not many times actually. There has been numerous occasions where I will get my takeoff wrong and I'll literally just face plant into the pit. In situations like that, it's inevitable that sand's going to end up everywhere. But thankfully, it doesn't happen super often. But sand pretty much ends up everywhere anyway. So, you just get used to it.
Yeah, and part of being a long jumper is sand is everywhere. You know, it's in your shoes, it's in your car, it's in your bed, it's probably, you know, on your floor at home. It's always there, I'm sure. We're going to bring on Jessie, Jessie is from Cranbourne South Primary School. Let me just get Jessie on now. How are you, Jessie?
Hey, Jessie.
Good. Hi, Brooke. It's good to see you.
It's good to see you too. How are you?
Good.
That's good.
My question for you is, what was the most exciting part of the Olympics?
Good question.
That is a fantastic question. There were so many exciting parts of being in Tokyo and experiencing, some amazing things at the Olympic Games. But I'd probably have to say making the long jump final and being able to share that experience with my dad, Russell, who's also my coach. There were so many emotions, and to have him in the crowd whilst the rest of my family was at home watching, it was really special. So I think that was probably the most exciting and the highlight of my games.
Well, that's a good achievement.
Thank you. Thanks so much.
Always.
Jessie, do you like sport?
Yeah, I really do.
What do you play?
I do swimming and cricket.
Yep. Not together, obviously.
No.
No, you can't do swimming and cricket together. Which is your favourite? If you had to choose one, which I'm glad you're not choosing one, but if you had to choose one, which is your favourite?
Probably swimming.
Yep. Good work.
Amazing.
Thanks heaps for joining us today, buddy, and good luck at Cranbourne South Primary School. We hope you can tune in later.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jessie. All the best.
Thank you for having me.
Bye.
So we're churning through these questions now. Brooke, we've got a question that's come in from Bailey from Canberra College. What does recovery look like after a competition? Another great question, but what does recovery look like for you?
That's a great question. Recovery is generally massage, physio. After a competition, sometimes I'll pull up pretty sore, especially as I'm getting older. So I try and see a physio straight after, obviously only if they're available and I can get in to see them. And I'll get a massage at some point as well post-competition. But just little things like making sure that I'm doing a cool-down jog, having a stretch, foam rolling, triggering certain muscle groups. But also occasionally I'll have an ice bath or even just ice areas that are sore in my body as well. But then trying to get a good night's sleep as well post-competition, which is generally quite difficult. But they're probably the best forms of recovery for me. Even just, wearing compression as well definitely helps.
I mean, you've hit the nail on the head. I think sleep is a really important thing as well. I think sometimes we underrate sleep in terms of recovery. But we've had a question come in, which is coming from Anne Landy, but I'm sure everyone wants to know, what was the food like at the Olympics in terms of the village? Because what people may not know is that you're not fussy, but you have certain things you can't eat. So what was the food like for you, and what was the food like for other athletes?
So for anyone that doesn't know, I have celiac disease, so I have to eat a 100% strict gluten-free diet. And gluten is basically found in any products that contain wheat, rye, barley, malt, or oats. So a lot of food products actually contain gluten, which makes it quite difficult at times. But in Tokyo, there was a 2-level dining hall, which had pretty much every single cuisine under the sun. So for athletes that don't have any dietary requirements, it was absolute heaven. But for me, I was actually pretty lucky because they had a dedicated gluten-free space or gluten-free kitchen. So I knew that I could eat there and it'd be safe, because the last thing I want is to get sick right before a major championships. But in saying that, the Australian Olympic Committee in the Australian building, they actually had a grab-and-go snack bar. So they had an amazing setup with so many different snacks, with rice or microwave rice sachets, cans of tuna, yogurts, you name it. So we were very well looked after, and that was another alternative to some food options, which allowed us to be able to eat within the Australian team building and not have to feel as though we needed to go over to the dining hall, for all our meals and all our snacks, because we were just trying to limit as much exposure to other athletes in other countries as possible, because we did have to factor in the fact that COVID was in the village. So we were looked after extremely well.
Was that hard to do what you just said, to factor in that there were other athletes from other countries? I know Australia made the stance to vaccinate every athlete before they went over, but was it hard to not mix it with, because, without going into the details of this, there was talk, or there was media releases of some of the athletes having to quarantine because Curtis Marshall made contact with a person who had COVID. So was it hard to stay away from it over there?
Yeah, it definitely was. Just getting to training and competition, we had to sit on a bus, and they jam-packed every single bus that we went on and made sure it was completely full. So we were always sitting next to strangers. We were always, coming within close contact to people in the dining hall, because it was like there were so many different athletes from all different countries in the village at the one time. So it was really hard to keep our distance from other people. But, having the option to stay in the Australian building as much as we could really lowered the risk for us Australian athletes. But it was very hard, and we just had to really be mindful of that when we were on buses and just try and be as hygienic as possible.
Yeah, it must have been difficult there, but you just about finished your quarantine, so you get to go home and see your family and see your fiance and see your dog. So it's all exciting stuff. It's not long now till you go back.
Yeah.
We've had a question come in that I've just put up here from Ethan and Mia from Rosanna Golf Links Primary School as well. Why did you choose long jump? And we talked about you playing basketball way back, but what was the choice, and why was the choice made for track and field long jump over basketball or any other sport?
That's a really good question. I feel like long jump chose me, really. So I obviously started doing little athletics from a very young age, and when I was in the under 8 age group, I broke the center record in the long jump, which was just like, I had no idea about, records and that sort of thing at that age. It was not something that I was focusing on. I was just enjoying having fun with my friends on a Saturday morning. But I think I decided to choose long jump over basketball or any other sport, particularly because I was making national teams. When I was 15, I made my first junior international team and went over to compete at the World Youth Championships. So once I started realizing that I could actually take this somewhere, I really wanted to have that sole focus on long jump. So that's when I had to make the decision to really just hone in on that one sport. And I really enjoyed basketball, but it did start interfering with my training for long jump as well. But I tried to do as many track and field athletics events as I could up until I was maybe 18 or 17 years of age, because I really enjoyed a lot of other events. But I think long jump, it was the one that I was most competitive at, but I also really enjoyed the feeling of being able to fly through the air when you get a jump right, and also just the training and what's involved there with long jump. There's quite a lot of variety with the training.
I didn't realise that you still did other events. So you would have done 100-metre sprint, relays. You did other events apart from long jump up until about 18, and then you solely focused on long jump. Is that right?
Yeah. So up until I think the under 20 age group, so I would have been about 17 or 18. I did numerous events at the national championships that year I actually made World Juniors for the long jump, but I also qualified for World Juniors in the triple jump. And I also did the hurdles at the national championship. So, yeah, it was sort of that age group was when I realised that, I had the potential of getting to the Commonwealth Games, which was a couple of years after, and was on my way to getting to the Olympic level as well. So I really just had to make that call, and I think I made the right call.
We think you made the right call too. The call wasn't made though with money enticing you. There was no carrot of money. People may not realise there's not money in athletics. If there's any money in any sport, it's going to be basketball, golf, tennis, football, soccer. But in terms of for you monetary wise, it's not a paid sport, athletics. So what is it that Brooke needs from that perspective right now? If you were to say, I'd love to have this for the next, year, what would that be?
In an ideal world, it would be really nice to have an apparel or footwear sponsor. That's something that I've been without for a couple of years now. So that was something that I was really hoping for that would come about post Tokyo Olympics, and I've got a couple of managers that are looking after that side of things. So, but yeah, I guess as you said, like there's not a heap of money in athletics, and I mean, if we want to make money, a lot of that money is to be made overseas. That requires travel, and with COVID last year, I wasn't actually really able to travel, and this year I made the decision to stay in Australia as well. So there is opportunities, but yeah, any help really goes a long way, and I don't do the sport for the money. I do it because I love it. So yeah.
I mean, that love is important, but enjoying the sport is really important too. A question that kind of flows in with what we're talking about now has come in from this young man. What made you want to compete competitively, and how did you start? And I guess the question really is, I know you're in competitive sport. I know I'm talking to an elite athlete here, but is the fun, non-competitive side of sport the part that is just, you just got to enjoy it? Is that important as well?
Oh, 100%. I mean, there's only a handful of athletes that are going to make it, as a professional athlete. A lot of athletes, it ends up just becoming a hobby and a social thing, which I think is super important, because I feel if I didn't make it to this level that I'm at, I'd still be doing it for fun because, I think it's so important to live a healthy and active lifestyle, and athletics is a sport that enables you to do that. So it's not all about winning, it's not all about representing your country. You can still have just as much fun doing it at a local level or a grassroots level.
Oh yeah, I think you're absolutely right. And back to when we asked the question before when Ava was on, what's kept you going for 20 years? Surely a part of that is that you just love it. You wouldn't do it for 20 years unless there was a love for rolling around in the sand, jumping as high as you can, as far as you can, running as fast as you can. And also, let's face it too, having the relationship you have with your dad as coach, all those things have come into play to keep Brooke focused and hungry for 20 odd years.
Yeah, 100%. I've been doing this sport since I was 5 years of age, so it's been 23 years, which has absolutely flown by. But yeah, if it wasn't for the amazing people that I've surrounded myself with, I probably wouldn't have enjoyed it as much as I have. So yeah, I guess the minute that I stop enjoying it is the minute that I'll no longer be doing it. And like there has been so many times, in days where I've woken up and I haven't wanted to go to training, as I touched on earlier. I haven't felt like going to the gym or jumping in a sandpit, but, there's more positive days and there's more days that you really do love it than you hate it. So it's all so worthwhile.
Very true. We're going to wind up with these last couple of questions. Ian Landy's asked this, but this is where we were going as well. In relation to what's next for Brooke, like obviously Birmingham is not far away, and thanks to COVID moving the Olympics, the Olympics are now only 3 years away as well. So Paris is only 3 years away. So looking, obviously there's those that are in your sights, but what's next for Brooke, both short term and long term as well?
Yep. So in the short term, I guess it's really just about getting my body right, addressing this knee injury, and hopefully I'll be able to do that once I'm out of hotel quarantine tomorrow, because that's really going to enable me to be at my best for when these big major championships come around. But yeah, we've got the Commonwealth Games next year, and we've also got a World Championships in athletics. So next year is going to be a pretty big year. We've also actually got a World Indoor Championships in March. So 3 major championships all within the 1 year. It's going to be pretty crazy. And I guess beyond that, we've got a World Championships in 2023 and then the Paris Olympics in 2024. So they're sort of, the goals that I'm really focusing on at the moment and striving towards. And I'm not really sure sort of beyond Paris 2024. I'll be 31 at that point. So I think it's all really about just seeing how my body holds up. And I'm just really excited for next season and to hopefully be back jumping distances that I know I'm capable of if I can, get some consistency in my training.
And is there thoughts about what it looks like after, post Paris? If it wasn't sport, what would it be? Do you have a dream of what you want to do?
Yeah. So me and my partner Nathan have had a bit of a long-term goal to start up our own business together. He's an exercise physiologist and also works part-time as a personal trainer on the side of that. So that's sort of our long-term goal, being able to start our own business, start up our own gym, really be able to, we're super passionate about health and fitness, and we love helping people and seeing people achieve their own goals. So that's something that we want to do together, and whether that happens or not, who knows? Maybe even go down the coaching pathway. But there's a lot of things up in the air. I also completed a Bachelor of Health Sciences back in 2019 at Deakin Uni. So I could maybe go somewhere with that degree as well. But I guess we'll just have to wait until post long jump career. But it's important that I've got a few things in mind at the moment.
Good job. And you've got some pretty exciting things happening in the next 12 months as well for you. So exciting stuff for you and your family, and for Winnie, your dog, who is definitely part of the family as well. Pretty exciting stuff. So we've loved having you on board, Brooke, and we as SSV will be to champion you as an athlete, but also just as a human being. We just love working with you. We love your role modeling with kids. We love your mentorship. But we just love the fact that you're just so engaging, and look, the future is bright for you, both in sport and outside of sport. I think you and Nath make a fantastic couple. And so I really look forward to what it looks like in the future. And good luck for everything that you're doing, and we'll continue to just keep people's eyes focused on you as much as we possibly can.
Thank you so much, Raf. I really appreciate those nice words. It means so much. And thanks so much to everyone that sent in the questions and came on the live to ask questions. It's been great engaging with you all.
Brilliant stuff. Next week we've got an exciting person on board, Josh Simmons, who's actually the silver medalist for the Hockey Roos. So he's come home and he'll be finishing quarantine this Sunday, but we've got him next Thursday. So maybe you'll have to tune in there, Brooke, and ask some questions too if you want.
Yeah, I know Josh, so I reckon I will.
Do you? Okay, fair enough. All right. Thanks heaps for joining us, Brooke, and we will see you in the not too distant future.
Thanks so much.